Philip, what struck you most about what it was that the Secretary-General there had to say?
This was almost a sort of feel-good speech, but a worried feel-good speech by Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary-General, kicking off what is going to be a long list of world leaders who are going to speak. As you were saying, Jair Bolsonaro of Brazil is going to take to the rostrum shortly. He'll be followed by the US President Joe Biden. Even President Xi of China is going to speak, but only by video message. So Antonio Guterres outlining his main priorities for the United Nations. There are 6 in all. The first one is the peace divide. He was talking about most notably in Afghanistan, but also in Myanmar, in the Sahel, in Yemen, in Lebanon, in Israel and Palestine. All of these countries, he said, need to bridge the gap to bring peace. Second one was the climate divide. He went quite at length into the risks facing the planet through global warming, saying that it was a communal effort that had to be worked on, and that the window of possibility to reach the targets outlined at the Paris Climate Agreement in 2015 is rapidly closing, but still possible. Next one was a gap between rich and poor that needs to be bridged with a global vaccination plan to eradicate COVID, with rich countries paying for poor countries to get as many people the jab as possible. He said also there needs to be more parity. They need to bridge the gap between men and women, particularly in countries like Afghanistan, where women virtually no longer exist, and said that the more that women were involved in a country, the more stable that country was. There was also a need to bridge the fracture, the internet fracture, he was calling it, so that all countries are connected, but with a special effort to clamp down on cybercrime and make sure that people are able to use the internet but not to lose their own identity while they're doing it. And finally, education and young people. Lots of stress on the need to reassure young people, whom he said are very shaken up by the threat of global warming. He announced that he was going to create a new UN Youth Office.
So those are the main issues that have been sketched out then by the Secretary-General of the United Nations. We're waiting for the US President Joe Biden to speak. Philip, do you have any sense as to which of those issues he's likely to focus on in his maiden address to the UN General Assembly?
Well, obviously, all eyes will be on Joe Biden to talk about the current submarine crisis between Australia and France and the United States and Britain. But depending on which networks you listen to, if you're outside of France, that issue isn't raised at all as to what the main points that Joe Biden is going to discuss are. I think everyone is waiting for him to say something, notably trying to make up to France, for example, because France is still a big important trading partner for the United States and a key ally of the United States. And I think the US doesn't want to make France too angry about this, even though France has made it quite clear it is very cross about what has been going on. But I think Biden will try to justify his withdrawal from Afghanistan. I think he will underline the efforts the US has made to eradicate the COVID crisis, and also the efforts that his administration is making concerning global warming. And I think also the fact that he wants to try to rebuild the US's diplomatic influence on the world following 4 years of Donald Trump in the White House.
Philip Tell, thanks very much indeed. And we won't miss